Hello everyone, I'm Dave Thomas, and today I'm building the Quest Aerotech Penetrator model rocket. This rocket goes together fairly quickly. I expect about an hour, and can be flown soon after. This is a great beginner's rocket, especially if you're a beginner that wants a tall rocket. This is going to be a great one for you. Like any of our kits, we want to open this up and make sure we have all the parts. Okay, so we've got two body tubes. One's a little bit bigger in diameter than the other. Okay, and then we've got the plastic pieces here. These are going to make up the fin can and the motor mount. We'll just kind of empty all this out here, because that way we can get to the instructions. Okay, now folded into the instructions are the materials for the parachute, and you do have to assemble all this yourself. And then we've also got a hybrid shock cord, and Quest is really noted for these. I think pretty much all of their kits have them. So part of the shock cord is made of Kevlar, and then part is made of elastic. And then we've got a whole plethora of decals here. Alright, so let's check and make sure that we did actually have everything here. Okay, we've got our nose cone. Okay, transition. Motor housing should have 4 fins. Motor mount tube. And then we've got the fin locking ring and the motor retainer. So it looks like everything is here. I'm going to move this around a little bit and clear space away so that we can start in on the build. For the first part of the kit, we're going to need the 2 shock cords here. They've actually got 3. There's an extra one. I think that's just they put 2 of them in there. Alright, so if your kit came with an extra one, it probably doesn't need it. I'm going to set that aside. Okay, so what we're going to do is put the ends right next to each other like this, and then we're going to tie an overhand knot in both of them like this, and we want about 2 to 2.5 centimeters here, or about an inch of excess on here. Okay, so you don't want to cut these down close. And I like to use just a little dab of wood glue or white glue on these, just to make that knot good and secure. Because the problem is Kevlar is kind of smooth, and it doesn't hold knots well. It tends to come undone. And so I like to put just a little bit of glue right on that knot, and you kind of work it around there. Just like that. Alright, and now we're going to find the half of the fin can here. Alright, so it's this one here that has a little loop molded into it. Okay, and so we're going to take the other end of the Kevlar here, the yellow cord. We're going to pass that through. And it's kind of stiff, so you might want to bend a little bit of a J into there. Alright, I'm just going to take it through the back side then. Poke it back up through the front. Just like that. Okay, and then we're just going to tie a double knot in this. Or if you're a Boy Scout, 2 half hitches. Okay, just give a little pull on there. Alright, and now this, any excess you have, just poke that back down in to the inside of this. Alright, and now you can, this is not included in the instructions, but again, just to help anchor things down, I'm going to use just a little bit of super glue here. And I'm going to apply that to my knot. Just a little dab. Alright, now we're going to glue the two halves together here, and so you can find those little pegs and little holes there, and I'm just going to do a dry fit quickly. Make sure it goes together easily. Alright, I'm going to pop that back open, and here you can use either a tube type cement like they show here, or a brush on type cement. Either one works. I like the brush on type because it does give a little bit more control, but it's also not as thick, and so it tends to dry a bit more rapidly. Alright, so I'm going to come over here to the holy side. Alright, and I'm going to run this, make sure I touch the hole, and then I'm just going to run this along the edges, not in the little depressed areas there, because that's where the fins are going to go. Okay, now we're going to apply this back to the other side. All right, and then I'm going to compress this and hold this for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to let this completely dry. So it'll probably take about 15 minutes. Because if we don't let it do that, when we go to put the fins in here, it's going to split it wide open again. Oh, forgot almost one thing here. Pop that back open. Alright, this piece needs to go in. This is our motor mount. Alright, so put our motor mount in there. Okay, and then we're going to put this back together. Got myself in just a little bit of a hurry there. Happens to the best of us. Okay, now I'm going to press that together again. And again, I'm going to let this dry for about 10 to 15 minutes and then come back. Now that the glue has set, I'm going to take the entire shock cord here and I'm going to pass this back down through the motor mount tube and out the aft end of the rocket. Now this does not show it in here. This is a little trick I'm adding to it. And what it'll do is keep us from running the shock cord through the glue when we go to put this into the body tube. Alright, so for the next part here, we want the larger body tube. And for this, you can either use a tube type plastic cement or a gel type super glue. I don't recommend the runnier types of either super glue or of plastic cement for this one, because we're joining two dissimilar types of materials, in this case cardboard and plastic. So I'm going to use a gel type super glue. That's my preference for this type of situation. Alright, but if you don't have this, you can use the tube type of plastic cement. And we're just going to run this in a bead just inside the body tube there. Alright. Okay, now we're going to insert this end here that has the R knot in it straight in. And I'm going to rotate it back and forth here a little bit to spread out that glue. And then once again, we're going to let this dry for at least 5 minutes, preferably 10 or so. And then we'll come back and start putting the fins on. Now while I'm waiting for the fin can to dry inside the main body tube, I'm going to skip a step here over to step 4 and assemble the payload bay tube. Now you have an option here. For this to be a payload bay, you want to leave the nose cone unglued, and that way you can go in here and you could put a payload in there like an altimeter or a bug or something like that. Don't fly invertebrates. That's in violation of most cruelty to animals types of acts. Alright, if you don't care about the payload section, you can just go ahead and glue this on. Alright, regardless of which way you do it, we do need to glue in the adapter to the other end of this. And so just like we did with the fin can, here again we're gluing two dissimilar substances. And so again, either use the thick super glue or the tube type plastic cement. I'm going to use the super glue once again here. Alright, and I'm just going to insert the adapter. And again, just kind of twist that around to get good seating of the glue. Alright, and then I'm going to let this set aside for about 5 minutes. And most likely, I think I'm going to just glue my nose cone on, but I've got 5 minutes to decide. Don't rush me. Some time has passed, and I have decided that I'm going to go ahead and glue my nose cone on here. So we'll go ahead and do this in the same way. We'll just add a bead of my thick super glue, or if you're using the tube type cement, that's perfectly good as well. Alright, and then we're just going to place that on there, just like this. Now, I'm just building this according to the instructions here for the most part, and I'm not worrying about sanding the nose cone or anything like that. You could do that and then paint it, especially if you want to change the colors. But here I'm building it as if I'm going to just go with what's here and be able to launch it in about an hour or so. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about the seams and things like that on the nose cone. Then on a more complex kit, I might go ahead and sand and paint. Alright, so I'm going to set that aside to dry. Okay, and then we're going to come back here to our fin can. And now that the glue is dried in here, I'm going to put the shock cord back up inside. And just feed that all the way through. So it comes out the other end here. There we go. Alright, so there's our Kevlar end and our elastic end, and for now we're just going to keep those out of the way. Okay, now for the fins, we're going to come up here. And here we have our 4 fins, and this is a locking ring. This is going to go on the back after we glue the fins on. Now the fins should go on in this direction, and they're meant to just pop down in here and slide forward. Okay, now they show gluing these on and then sliding them in. I've had some problems with kits very similar to this where you apply the glue to them and you go to slide them in and you get about halfway up and they get stuck. Okay, so I'm going to offer an alternative to doing them this way. So here I have another brush-on type of plastic cement. It's essentially the same as the one I used earlier, except this has got a very fine brush in it, so it can get into little nooks and crannies. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and push all of the fins in to their mounting slots, and we have to make sure that they clear this area because this ring is going to go on here, so we don't want the fins sticking out beyond that. And truth be told, you can actually assemble this without any glue on the fins because that ring on there is going to hold the fins in place. But they will be stronger if you do in fact glue it. Alright, now it feels like we got a little bit of glue or something in the wrong place here. It's not letting us quite get in there. I'm also feeling some motion up here, so I'm going to go ahead and finish putting this in. Okay, but as I was doing this, I was seeing some motion here. And so I think what we're going to need to do... Okay, that's still sticky. It just hasn't completely cured yet. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in there. And it looks like this needs to dry for a little bit longer. So I'm not going to do anything with the fins yet. I'm going to just leave them where they are. And I'm going to let this dry for another 15 minutes and then come back. I let the super glue on the fin can dry for another 10 minutes or so, and it's no longer wobbly. So we can continue here. All right, so making sure all of my fins are on straight. All right, now I'm going to add this retaining ring. And again, this is a little bit different from the instructions. All right, so that's going to go on and twist, theoretically. Okay, now, since it is not twisting, I've got something wrong. Okay, let's try, it's twisting backwards. There we go. Okay, so twist it counterclockwise, and these little raised areas should line up with the fins here. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and... Doesn't want to come off again. There we go. Okay, so here, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead. Now, they don't actually glue this retaining ring on. I am going to. Okay, so here I'm just going to take the brush on applicator and just run some glue along here. Now, this particular glue dries really quickly. It evaporates. And so you want to do this part pretty quick. Alright, and then go ahead and put that ring back on. Let's find the little nubbins here. Okay, and then again, twist counterclockwise. Lock that into place. Oh, that's grabbing. There we go. Alright, now the fins themselves, what we'll do is just run the glue right along the joints and just let the glue flow underneath them. And if you get a little bit excess on there, don't worry about it. As long as you don't touch it, when this dries, it's pretty unnoticeable. So we're just going to go all the way around and do both sides of each fin. Okay, now when this is fully dry, when we go to put a motor in, this will go into the little slots here, like this, and then you just twist that on. Now for now I'm not going to leave it on there in case I've got some escaped glue, and we don't want to glue that on permanently. Alright, over on the other end, okay, we're going to tie a loop here in the elastic end, and they show using a figure-8 knot. You don't have to. You can use a water knot if you like, which is just an overhand knot in the loop. All right, but we do want it to be fairly spacious here. Kind of move that knot down. And here again you can use a little bit of white glue to hold that knot in place. This is optional, but it's just a little added security there. Alright, and if you've got a large free end here, you can either retie the knot or just cut it back a little bit. I leave about 1/4 inch or about 6 millimeters there. You don't want to cut it all the way up to the knot, otherwise it may unravel. Okay, I'm going to set this aside for a little bit and let all the glues dry. And our next part is the parachute. Okay, we've got an error here. Okay, so what they are showing is tying one of those parachutes to the nose cone. Okay, and this is what you would do with kind of a standard model rocket, but recall we glued our nose cone in to the upper tube here, and the lower tube has this transition glued in too, so ejection gases are not going to go through this rocket. Okay, what I think they meant to do here is to have one parachute tied to the upper section here, and this would come down by itself, and then the other parachute would be tied onto the shock cord of the lower section, and it can come down. Now with a 14-inch parachute though, these are going to take forever to come down. So I am trying to decide really what would be the best way to do this. Alright, so here on this page, this is the last page, they actually show how to do it here. Okay, and this may also explain why there was an additional piece of elastic shock cord. Okay. Now before we go ahead and do the parachutes, I'm going to take this other piece of elastic shock cord and I'm going to tie it on the eyelet here of the adapter. In this way both parachutes will have shock cords, and the shock of opening will be less likely to tear the parachute. Okay, so I'm going to tie this one on here. I'm going to tie that with 2 half hitches or a double knot. Like this. Okay, get it good and stretched in all directions. Okay, and as I did with the other one, I'm going to cut this back to about 1/4 inch or about 6 millimeters. And we're going to put a little bit of glue on here. Okay, and then up on the other end, I'm going to tie another loop. Try that again. Okay, and do the same thing. We're going to put a little bit of glue on there. And then cut that back. Okay, and we're going to let these dry now for just a few minutes, and then we'll come back and do the parachutes. Okay, we're ready to do the parachute now, and we'll do this twice, but I'm just going to show one parachute here in the video, but you'll do this exact same thing for the second one. So go ahead and open up the sheet here. Okay, and then we're just going to cut along the dotted lines here. Next we'll apply these reinforcements, and so these will go in the square areas here, minus the middle, so as you peel these off they should be square donuts. Okay, and then the next step is to take a pen or a pencil and poke through these. Don't use a hobby knife or something like that, as it will cut the reinforcements. Okay, so you want to press these through like such. Okay, and then next we're going to take our shroud lines here, and this is a loosely wrapped, and these ones fortunately are pre-cut, so we just need to unravel them here. And now what we're going to do is tie them from one corner to an adjacent corner. And this is the trickiest part. You want to try and get the amount of string that you use tying to be about the same all the way around. And that just takes practice. I don't know of a good simple shortcut to let you do that all the time. All right, and then use a double knot or 2 half hitches here to tie that on. And then come around to the next one. Okay, and then we're just going to continue this with the other 2 shroud lines. Now this next part is optional, but you'll probably find it works a lot better to move these parachutes in and out and just to connect them to the shock cords. So what I've got here is a snap swivel that you would normally find in fishing stores and in fishing departments. And we're going to use this as a quick attachment for the parachute. So first I'm going to gather all of my shroud lines in loops around my finger here, and then I'm going to grab the other side here, so right in the middle of the parachute sheet, and I'm going to pull those all tight, and they should all meet in about the same area there. So that means you got all the shroud lines roughly the same length. Now I'm going to hold on to those so they don't change relative length to each other, and pinch these down. Now in the directions, you would then tie this directly to the shock cord. So you'd pass this through here, okay, like this, and then pass the entire parachute back through the loops and pull that tight, and that will permanently attach it to the shock cord. Now I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to pull mine permanently tight. All right, I'm going to come back to where I was there. once more. So I've got all my loops. Okay, and I'm going to pinch those down, and I'm going to take my snap swivel, and I'm going to pass those shroud lines through the swivel end here. Alright, so this is the snap end. This is the swivel end. And the size of the swivel doesn't really matter much as long as the snap part will fit over wherever you're hooking it to. And since in this case it's the shock cord, just about any size will work. Alright, now I'm going to open all those loops up again with my finger. Okay, and now I've just got the snap swivels hanging through the loops there. I'm going to come back and make sure my relative lengths have not changed here. Alright, and those look good. And now I'm going to open the loops. I'm going to pass the entire snap swivel through those loops and pull them downward like this. And now I'm just going to pull that whole thing tight. And that's going to form its own little knot here around the swivel end. So you just pull that down. Check one more time to make sure your lengths are still okay. And then go ahead and put another little drop of white glue or wood glue on there to keep that from unraveling. This is using some sort of, look at that polyester thread, and it does not want to hold the knot very well, all bunched together like that. So just a little bit of glue on that. And now, when you're ready to fly, you simply open up the snap part of that. That's going to connect to our shock cord there. And now you would just fold this up and stuff it down in the rocket. I have both of the parachutes finished, and I'm just going to set them aside for now. I'm not going to assemble the rocket quite yet. Instead, I'm going to leave it in two pieces to make putting the decals on easier. These are all self-adhesive, and on step 7 here it gives us a recommended placement. So most of these are meant to wrap around the body tube to give the pattern indicated. Now it doesn't mean you have to use these. This is your rocket, decorate it however you like. I'm just going to do a couple of them here to get started. And so we'll go with the upper body tube here to begin with. Okay, and I'm going to kind of work my way from the top down here. And it's kind of hard to figure out just exactly where all those little arrows and such go. Looks like the top one is one of these. So I'm just going to peel that up. And this is going to go right below the nose cone. So what I recommend is just kind of lightly place these on the rocket. Don't press down very hard to begin with. Now for this one especially, you want to make sure that you don't stick the nose cone down so that it gets held to the rocket. Actually, since I glued the nose cone, it won't make any difference. But if you're using the payload bay as such, that nose cone needs to be able to come off, but not very easily. Okay, so that's just wrapping around there. And so we can continue with this as we go down. So all 3 of these are going to go on the upper body tube. You put them pretty much wherever you want to. And then the Penetrator decals there, those are going to go lengthwise, roughly down the middle on 2 sides there. And again, I'm going to start by just lightly tacking that on and then making sure it looks straight. That's off maybe just a hair. Okay, and then once you have it in position, go ahead and squish that down, get good contact there. All right, and we're just going to keep doing this all the way down the rocket. I'm going to do the rest of these off camera and come back when I've got all of the decals applied. Here I have my decals applied, and I did a little bit something different here. And I put a Penetrator decal on both sections rather than on the upper section on two sides. And as I said, you can do these however you want. So all we have to do now is some final assembly. So we'll go ahead and attach the parachutes. Okay, and here again is where it's handy to have that snap swivel. Just snap those on to the two shock cords. Okay, and before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and attach the motor retainer here, and this is just a bayonet mount, so you just put that in and turn it a little bit more than a quarter of a turn, and that locks it in place. Now, if we were actually prepping this for flight, I would put in probably about 4 sheets, maybe 5 of recovery wadding there. Okay, and then for my parachute, I like to fold it into a triangle about this size. And then I'm going to bring my shroud lines up. So this is roughly halfway down the shroud line. I bring those up into the triangle, fold the edges over. Okay, and then fold the whole thing down. And then fold the edges over again so that I get a cylinder here. And so this is the first parachute, the one for the main part of the rocket. And so this would just get stuffed down inside there along with its shock cord. Okay, and that should go in really easily. If it's binding up or catching on something, you need to take a look and see if there's something sticking out where it shouldn't be. Alright, then we have the second parachute here. I'm going to do this in the same way. So just fold the shroud lines up into the triangle, fold the edges over, whole thing down, right, and once again into a cylinder. And then this is just going to get stuffed on top of the previous parachute and shock cord. Okay, now here we need to be careful that the shock cord does not end up getting caught between the shoulder of the adapter and the body tube. Okay, so that should, see, that was trying to get up in there. We don't want that. Okay, now mine is really loose. I can't even do a shake test with that yet. So if your adapter is loose there, take some masking tape and wrap that around the shoulder, not up on the outside. I just dropped the whole thing. Okay, so we're not trying to tape this to the rocket to hold it together. We're just taping it to the shoulder to provide some more friction. Okay, again, once more, when we put this in, we want to make sure we're not catching that shock cord here. Okay, so that's tighter. What we want to do is do a shake test now. Alright, and that's still pretty loose. So I'm going to add maybe another half of a circumference there. I think a full second layer would be too much. Okay, that feels a lot better. So now I can shake that, and it's not coming loose, but I can still pull it apart relatively easily. And that's about what we want. So with that, we come up here from nose to tail. All right, that is our penetrator. It just keeps going and going and going. Hope you had a good time building this with me. Overall, this took about an hour, even though the video kind of had stops and starts to it. The video is going to be shorter than that. Hope you have a great launch and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.